Hello everyone, it's Alistair here from the Marine Conservation Society, trying to be a bit more professional than the last few minutes where I've been trying to work out technology, but never mind, I'm an old person, these things happen. They're hopefully laughing a bit. You're young people, so it'll be good. You will understand these things. And today, we are going to be talking about, check this out for really, really cool technology. We're going to be talking about this animal. Cool. It's a nice poster, right? So we're going to be talking turtle today. And I'm really, really happy to say we have my colleague, Amdeep Sanghera. Amdeep, say hello.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing?
Good. I think we're all okay. So we're going to be talking turtles today, and we're going to talk we've got some nice, exciting things to show you. I think probably I'll tell you a very quick bit about MCS. What do we do? I'll just show you our logo again. It's kind of a nice logo. So we here at the Marine Conservation Society, we try to do exactly that. We try to save, to conserve the marine, which is the saltwater part of the world, the sea, the ocean. We try with a group of people, the society, that tries to save conservation, the marine, the ocean part of the world. It's pretty simple, really. That's what we do. I'm not an expert. My job is the public engagement officer. I go out and talk to schools and young people like yourselves and teachers like Miss Corkery, who we have today. But we do have an expert in Amdeep. So we're going to talk a bit more about turtles, and I'm going to hopefully let you see my slides as we go. Amdeep, can you tell me just a little bit about you, please? Can you tell us a bit about you?
Sure. Well, Ali, that's a very flattering introduction, but I like to say that the term expert, I honestly think that we know so little about turtles. There's so much more to know. You know, this is why they're such a fascinating species. This is why I think the term expert, you know, is. I'm not trying to downplay it, but I'm just saying that there's so much to know, you know, and there's so many people working on this fascinating species. But very quickly, yeah. So I actually work for MCS now, and Ali said, guys, our focus is mostly on UK mainland, but my focus is working in the Caribbean, and in fact, the Caribbean UK overseas territories. UK overseas territories in the Caribbean, I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they're basically connected to the UK, but they don't actually form part of it. And they've got their own internal governments. And I was lucky enough to work for MCS in the Turks and Caicos Islands, which they can see. And in fact, guys, I'm actually a Brummie myself. Before I flew to the Turks and Caicos Islands, I was living in Moseley, Birmingham. So you can kind of see that was a pretty big life change for me.
You said it's not quite the same as Moseley in Birmingham. Could you tell us a bit more? And maybe I'm going to put my hand up. Miss Corkery, have you been to the Turks and Caicos? I haven't. Has anyone in the class been to the Turks and Caicos? Okay. Can you tell us a little bit, just quickly, what would it look like? Is it just like the middle of Birmingham at the Bull Ring?
Close. Yeah. That's in fact that's exactly as it is. No, it's probably the most opposite landscape from the Birmingham Bull Ring. In terms where I was situated was a very small fishing village called South Caicos, and you know, when you think of the Caribbean, you think of verdant volcanic hills with lush greenery. The Turks and Caicos is different. It's actually very flat, very low-lying, and it's made out of limestone, right? And their history involved a lot of salt trade. So, because you've got all that salt basically on the land, it's made everything quite infertile. So there's not much stuff that grows. And being by the coast where I was, you've got a real kind of hard, arid shrubbery. But you know, I've been lucky enough to be working in marine conservation for a while, and I think just the wildlife that I saw there was just mind blowing. You know, where I was living in South Caicos, I could see humpback whales migrating. You know, so you know, I remember once it was lunchtime, and I thought, what is that? and I looked at it again. It was a tail of a humpback, and I knew they were migrating. So I left my sandwich, which is very rare for me. I got my flippers on, and I literally took 10-meter walk, jumped into the ocean, and I swam, and I was able to keep a safe distance from the whales, and just observe it. It's incredible.
Wow.
And I had reefs in quite close to where I was living. Obviously, we're going to talk about turtles. They were permanent residents there. Lots of species of fish, rays. But I think what else was amazing was I was working with the fishing community there to try and look how we could all collectively conserve turtles better.
Mm-hmm.
And not only was the natural environment so enchanting, but also the local fishing community, their culture, and how they accepted me, and going out with them and understanding how their relationship with the sea,
Wow.
absolute masters. And it was all really incredible experience.
So, Mike, this is really wonderful. It sounds very, very, very different to Birmingham. The fact that you could just chuck your flippers on and shoot off and go and swim with a whale sounds pretty incredible to me. But I love the fact that you are talking a little kid growing up in Birmingham is doing this now. I think that is brilliant. Who knew that Birmingham was the centre of marine biology in the world? I didn't, but I do now. So my main interaction with turtles has been not like Amdeep, who's actually out working with the animals. I tend to walk around with things like this poster, and indeed I can see behind Miss Corkery, we've got some of my posters because I popped into a wonderful school of St Bernadette's. But the other thing I sometimes take, and give me 2 seconds, this is kind of cool. Let me show you this. Guys, can you all see that okay? All right, so, okay. Now, this is a turtle. I'm going to let Andy tell you more about it, but before we start, I have a very, very quick question. We can ask maybe Miss Corkery to ask the class. Where do you think this came from? Any ideas where this came from? Ask the class. Where this is a real thing. It's very, 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 very old. So it died a long time ago. And we are lucky at the Marine Conservation Society to have it. But here's my question: where do you think it came from? Maybe a few little questions for the guys in the class, Miss Corkery. What do you think?
Where do you think Alisdair's turtle came from? If you just want to say your answer nice and loud and clear.
The sea.
The sea is a good guess. Well done.
That is a very logical answer. There's a young scientist talking there. Let's have another answer, please.
Anybody else explain where that turtle that he's got in his hands might have come from? Nice.
Wales.
Oh, we learned this morning about a turtle that was found in Wales.
So that I'm so impressed by that answer. The biggest turtle ever found was found in Wales. It was a different species to this one. Amdeep will tell you the species in a moment. The one we found that's the one that lives here, that comes up in the in the spring and into the summer after our jellyfish, is the leatherback turtle. So brilliant knowledge. And also I like the very logical scientific answer that we heard. Let me tell you where this comes from. If I turn it over carefully, I'm hoping you guys can see this. Can you see? There's a little bit, I'm not sure if it shows, can you see there's a little bit of writing on the bottom? It's very faint. There's little black marks there.
Hookah.
I'll tell you what it says. This actual thing comes from a shop called Hudson Veritier, which is a very posh, or was, a very posh glasses shop in London. So it comes from, I think it's Clapham High Street. This actually comes from Clapham High Street in London, a big town, not unlike Birmingham. And this was hung up in shops advertising that the glasses, the frames of the glasses would be made of the shells. Beautiful colour there that you can see. And it was hung up, and if I show you, can you see? In fact, I'll have a look at you. Can you see? You can see right through. and I'll show you. There's a little metal. Can you see that little metal hoop there? It was hung up in a glassy shop, advertising that the frames were made of this shell. So we don't do that now. You wouldn't see that in a shop now. We've worked out that that is a really horrible thing to do. It's a very bad thing to do with a turtle, I'm sure you'll agree. But this is one of the good things about plastic. My glasses, very nice, I hope you agree, are made of plastic. But this plastic is saving us from having to make our glasses out of turtles. So there's my little turtle. It's actually quite big. I'll give you an idea how big it is. There we are. So try and give you a bit of an idea. But Amdeep, my question is, Amdeep, exactly what is a turtle? Could you tell us?
Okay, so that in your hand, Ali, is a species of a sea turtle. And so sea turtles are reptiles. Now, you guys may have heard of reptiles, but they are basically air-breathing vertebrates. And now, a vertebrate is basically an animal that has a backbone inside their body, a bit like humans. But with reptiles, they're also covered in a special skin made up of scales, bony plates, or a combination of both. There you go. But there's even a further distinction. So marine turtles are reptiles, but they also form part of a smaller group called marine reptiles. And now there's about 12,000 types or species of reptiles, but there's only 100 that are marine reptiles. You've got sea turtles, you've got marine iguanas, you've got sea snakes, and you've also got the saltwater crocodile.
Sea snakes, crocodiles.
Exactly. And so sea turtles, well, as I said, they're air breathing. They'll come up for air, but as somebody said in the class, yeah, they're found in the sea. They spend the vast majority of their life in the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
If I show you really closely, I hope you can see this, Andy, and especially the class. I'm trying to go in to show you the two little holes right at the front. Can you see that, guys? Just in here, can you see? Can the class see that, miss?
Yeah.
Sorry to do this, but see the holes in my horrible great big nose? Right, little holes so I can have a breathe. And here's another little one to show you. You can see why they called it a hawksbill. If you think about a hawk is a bird of prey or a raptor, things like owls, eagles, vultures, kestrels, or something like that. They are birds of prey. They're birds that eat animals, but especially things like the hawks, they have this lovely sharp, even bigger nose than mine, this sharp beak. And when people first found this animal, they knew it looked a lot like a turtle, but it had a face a bit like a hawk. And so it became known as the hawksbill turtle. Excellent. Let me just flick, I'll just move it around and flick to the next slide. Now, I'm just going to show you what they look like swimming around. So I just need to do a quick little share of a video. 2 seconds. Let me show you this. Here we go. Can everyone see this? Here we go. Play, please.
And this was actually a video taken in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
And is that a hawksbill, Andy?
It is, yeah. You can possibly see the bill of the hawk, but also the coloration of the shell is very distinctive.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There it is, comes up for air.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Do you know what, Andy? I might just play that again. I like that so much.
Yeah.
So everyone have a really close look. We'll just play that again. anything you want to say, any commentary you want to give will be really nice. I'll just play that again. It's only 30 or 40 seconds. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I quite just like to look at them, to be honest. But as I said, hawksbills will mostly spend their time on coral reefs. And this is what this particular hawksbill is gliding over now.
So is that animal looking for food, Amdeep?
I imagine it's probably just trying to keep an eye on my manager, Peter Richardson, who's filming it, and just making sure he's staying in good distance.
Okay, I think that's an interesting thing. So you were with a colleague and you were in swimming along. So the turtle was going like this and you're swimming along behind it, filming it. And you're saying probably this animal is looking out kind of out the back of its eyes to check what you are, that maybe you're not a shark or something like that. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I think with this turtle, I mean, turtles in general, I think they're just very aware, you know, of their marine environment, and very sensitive to threats. So yes, sharks are predators, but humans are as well. So I imagine they're just very sensitive to sounds and vibrations in the water and big objects moving behind them. So I think, yeah, they're just trying to keep an understanding of who those, you know, where they are, who they might be, and just to get a sense of when it might be a good time to swim away.
Okay, so when I describe turtles, and I think we can both, if you're saying you're not an expert, I'm definitely not an expert. But I think when most of us go swimming, most of our power comes from the chest and the arms when we swim. And I think it's right to say that really most of their power is at the front here, and they tend to steer a bit more with the flippers at the back. 100%. So they are, if you like, the engine of a turtle is in this part of the turtle coming through these, look how long, look how big those front flippers are compared to the back flippers. Can you see that? There's the back flippers, guys. So if you look at that, I'll try and hold that as clear as I can. I'll bring it down and look at the front flippers. Now I'm going to show you something else. That's my foot. They're a bit dirty because I've been in the garden, sorry, but that's my arm. So I've got a lot more power and a lot more of a paddle effect so me, actually, we're kind of similar in some ways. So there's kind of front wheel powered. Would you say the sort of front powered, Amdeep, is true to say?
Yeah, most definitely. That's where that's their powerhouse, basically. And, you know, if you were to look at, let's say, a leatherback turtle, which you described, you know, which spends, the adults do spend a bit of time in our British waters. If you look at the size of their front flippers, they're like huge paddles, you know, and it really helps them to navigate those deep ocean waters. And like you say, the rear flippers help to give direction, to give some kind of direction to the power that the front flippers are giving. But also, they're so adapted to the sea. Yeah, you look at that hawksbill turtle you've got in your hands, and you look at that shell. It's so streamlined. It's just going to glide through the water.
So when you're saying streamlined, it comes like this, and the water's just coming up over and going over the back like that, isn't it? There's not a lot of resistance. If I hold that out, I mean, I've got a horrible big head, but just my head is a lot deeper than this turtle, and this is quite a big animal. So they're quite narrow, aren't they, where they can glide through the water, and they're really strong swimmers. Is that right?
Yeah, it depends on the species, but certainly, you know, the green turtles that we see in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Caribbean, if you look at them, I mean, you know, they are made for speed in the water. Their shells are just designed just to kind of cut through water, and I've spent many a time trying to chase after them. You know, and yeah,
in fact, I think we might have.
There we
go. Well, there you go. So that's an amazing image. Can you talk us through this image for us? And if I hold, that would be the back. If I held that up, could you talk us through a little bit of this image for the guys in the classroom, Andy?
Yeah, sure. So I think an important thing to think about when we talk about sea turtles is that, you know, they have been on this planet in our waters for at least 120 million years. You know, and that's really hard to try and put into context, considering how long humans have been on this planet,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the modern versions of turtles. Their predecessors were around about 260, 280 million years ago, when trees were starting to evolve, which is kind of crazy.
Exactly. You know, so they are really ancient animals, and you can kind of see how many changes they've been through over that staggeringly long time. I mean, look at the animal in front of you compared to the one in Ali's hands. You know, look at the size of it, and so you can see that the marine turtles' environments have changed, and so through evolution, they've also modified, adapted, and that's why they're a lot different to what we see today.
You know what I find really fascinating? So, Miss Corkery, what I'd really like you guys to do is have a focus on that turtle's flippers. Doesn't that remind you of something? Can you see the flippers up here? Hopefully you can see where the flippers are. And they look really, really like the bones of your hand. I find that really fascinating. If I show you the flipper here, inside there, they're just kind of like the bones, the fingers in our hand, slightly stretched to make this lovely paddle for them to be so good at swimming. And I think it's a great image. I think Mary found that image. It's a stunning image.
You know, there is this term that's been used to talk about the health of particular animals, and I'm sure you guys in the classroom have heard of it. You know, whether a species is endangered or critically endangered.
Have a look at the slide.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically, there's this.
What does endangered mean, Andy? Can you tell us what endangered means?
Yeah, endangered. So it's basically it's threatened, you know, to a certain degree, and it's threatened to the point where it may become extinct. Wow. So the system that we used is known as the red list.
Ah, I see. I've got red on our slide. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, and you've got different levels. So the green turtle, globally, its health is known as endangered. But unfortunately, the hawksbill is one step up, and that's critically endangered. So they're actually in real trouble of becoming extinct in the wild.
We're talking there about the word decreasing. They're the numbers that we can count. Scientists like you and our colleague Dr. Peter Richardson, when you go out to places like the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean and you count them, you are counting less and less. Is that right?
Yeah, so basically, like I say, it's scientists all across the world that are contributing to work out the health of this species. Mm-hmm. And what they'll be doing is they'll be going to nesting beaches and trying to count the number of turtles that are nesting and the number of nests. They'll be going into the water and trying to get an approximate number of turtles using those habitats, but also looking at the threats too, the threats that are facing turtles. So it might be that you've got fishing increases in a particular area. It might be increases of pollution. It might be that you've got hotels that are cropping up on land, which were originally used for turtle nesting beaches.
Right.
You know.
But what did I hear about the light from hotels that can be a problem when the baby turtles come out the eggs? Could you tell us a bit about when the tiny little babies come out through the sand from their egg? What is the problem with hotels having lots of light shining from their windows and from their bars and outside the hotel? Is there a problem with that?
Yeah, definitely. So again, what the science thinks is that, you know, when a baby turtle comes out of the beach, comes out of its nest, it's got one thing on its mind, and it needs to get to the sea. basically. But at night, it can be quite dark. And so it's basically evolved to follow a light on the horizon of the ocean. So it's looking for a light on the horizon of the ocean. And that, a lot of the times, is the reflection of the moon, you see. So that's where it's, for centuries, you know, for millennia, it's been designed to look for that light.
And there wouldn't have been light from hotels going back thousands of years, would there?
Exactly, not to the extent that we have now. So like I say, like you were mentioning, you've got a lot of hotels that have been built on nesting beaches,
Right.
and they've got lights on. So when these turtles, hatchlings, do come out of the nest, they're disoriented. They don't know which way to go. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of cases of where the baby turtles will actually go the opposite way towards the hotels. And some of them do perish, I'm afraid, you know. But there are efforts across the world to try and deal with this issue, like in Florida in America, where they're trying to, you know, have a curfew for lights, especially in the turtle nesting season, or using different forms of lights that don't impact the baby turtles.
Okay, let me just see if we can find. So we're going through some of the different species here. We've gone from Kemp's Ridley at the moment, critically endangered. An interesting population needs updates. So we need more scientists out there, Amdeep. Is that true? We need more turtle scientists.
Absolutely. You know,
that means you, class. That's you. If you're in this class or you're watching this when we put this on YouTube in the future, we need more turtle scientists. So keep studying, and we really need you out there helping these animals. We need more Amdeeps in this world. I'm just trying to, now we talked about the baby turtles coming out, and I think I can tell by the way the beach is going, this little guy is facing the right way. Could you give us an idea with your fingers how big this hatchling would be, this little hatchling that's just come out of its egg?
Sure. So this hatchling, me and my manager Peter had the privilege of digging out from the nest.
Oh,
and
wow.
you can see my finger. It's probably about the length of my finger.
Wow.
And we're thinking,
what species is that, Amdeep?
So that is actually a green turtle.
Beautiful, but not very green. Why are they called green turtles? They're not green.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the reason for that is the green turtles, when they get to a certain size, they'll start eating their preferred food, which is seagrass. And that then gives their fat a green coloration.
Oh, right. So it's not, it's the
named
fat that they have.
After their fat.
Interesting. Okay.
And another reason why we know this is a green turtle hatchling, because guys, can you see the underbelly of this particular green turtle? You can see it's white, right? Okay, and the top is black. Now, some of you may know this, but the reason it's white is that, imagine if you're a baby hatchling that's on the surface of the water trying to get into the deep sea, which is where these small hatchlings go, and you're a fish that's looking for a meal. That's going to be quite hard to see when you've got a turtle with a white underbelly. So it's part of a camouflage, really, that is used to try and offset the predators, basically.
So if something was really dark and swimming across the water, it might look a bit like that from underneath. Is that true to say?
Could be. Or if you've got that yellow, shading underneath, it might camouflage it as well.
I see, because the light's up there from the sun, the lighter underneath, the less chance you can see it against the light coming up from above.
Yeah, exactly. But also, Ali, everyone should have a look at that massive flipper. Look at that. Even though it's a baby, even though it's spent about 60 days in that nest, look at the size of that flipper compared to its body.
It's almost the length of the entire turtle, Andy, at that stage.
See, exactly.
Wow.
You can see that these marine species, they're so adapted to the ocean.
So we've just clicked onto a nice picture here. Tell us a bit about how turtles go about laying their eggs. I think the guys in the class would like to hear about that.
Sure. So we've gone from a very small turtle hatchling weighing 10 grams now to this, which is a mother green turtle, which I don't know, I would say weighs about 250 kilograms.
Wow, I'm about 100.
Yeah.
So 2.5 times me. Oof, and I'm quite a big human. 2.5 times my weight, Andy.
And that's one of the biggest growths in the animal kingdom,
Wow.
believe it or not. And it will probably take, from that hatchling, if it survives all the threats, it will probably take it about 25, 30 years to reach an age where it can start to reproduce.
Wow, okay. So they're quite slow growing then?
Yeah, very, very slow growing, slow aging. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. So what do we see here? I mean, tell us, one, that's Peter's. Well, hello, Sue. What are we seeing here? Tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, sure. So basically, that turtle, which on the previous slide, it's basically homed in on the area, or very close to the area where it popped out of a beach maybe 25, 30 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they will, turtles will migrate back, and what they will do is they will look to check whether the beach is suitable for laying eggs. So what generally happens is a turtle will come up like it has in this photo, and you can kind of see the track of this turtle. Now this turtle is actually a leatherback. You can know the species from the actual shape of the track. And I believe this has actually resulted in a nest. You can see at the back, you've got a big, kind of like a hole in the sand. But generally what female turtles will do is they'll come onto the beach, they'll check the sand to see if it's deep enough, if there's no rocks. Also, if there's a bit of water in the beach, that can also be a problem for the eggs. They need a really dry, they need basically dry sand. And once they've had a little dig around, they'll then go back into the sea, and most likely they may do that and check one more night, but then they'll come back and likely lay a nest.
And so when they come out, they shoot out the sand, as we see on this beautiful picture here. Tell us again, which would that be? More green turtles? So
the species on your left is actually a hawksbill.
Hey.
Hawksbills, and you may be able to see their beak. It's actually pointed, and that helps to break the shell that they're in.
Wonderful. So that tiny little hatchling there, can you show us with your fingers how big those would be?
Yeah, about that big.
About as big as a finger. Yeah. I'll hold up a finger next to this turtle. They go a lot bigger, and this is not a fully grown one. They can go to about 1.2 meters, something like that. And they scoot down the beach here. And is that which species is this one over this side, Andy?
Okay, so yeah, this one on the right hand side, you might be able to see the white lining around the shell of the turtle.
Yeah,
that's a green turtle, the one that we saw before that has the white coloration on the underbelly.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And Ali, can you just go back to that, because I think
sure.
I find this amazing, and I'm sure that the kids will as well. This phase of the baby turtle taking its first steps on this beach is really important, because it's almost like it's getting an imprint of the exact location of where it is in the world, almost like, let's say, a GPS. Wow. If we can think of that. So we think that these first few moments of a baby hatchling turtle's life, when it's taken those first few steps on the beach, it's almost getting a sense of exactly where it is on the surface of the planet. And that can really help in those migrations back to the nesting beaches 25, 30 years.
Fantastic. I think this would be a really good stage, Miss Corkery, that we bring, we've got a little bit after this, but it'd be great to bring some of your guys in. And I'm sure they're going to ask questions that people in the future watching this broadcast, hopefully watching this broadcast, questions they might have. I think some of your students have got questions for Andy. Could we bring some of the guys in to ask a few questions, please?
Of course we could. Hello, my name is Miss Corkery and I teach in St Bernadette's Catholic Primary School in Yardley in Birmingham. I have a bunch of year 3 and 4 children here with me today who've been learning all about turtles and come up with a few questions to ask Amdeep. And Amdeep came from not very far away here, so I'll pass you over to the children for them to find out their facts.
Hiya.
Hi, my name is Stanley, and I've got a question for Andy. How do turtles eat?
How do they eat? That's a really good question. Sorry, what was your name again? I didn't catch it.
Stanley?
Stanley.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Stanley. Yeah, so basically, Ali, do you want to get that Hawksbill up?
I will do.
I'll show you the turtle that we've got. So this turtle, like you see, like Ali said, Stanley, it's got a beak like a hawk, right? And that jaw, it helps this hawksbill turtle to rip and take apart its food. And basically, a hawksbill will mostly eat soft corals and sponges, kind of what you saw on that video when that hawksbill was gliding over. So this beak's really strong. It will help rip that food apart and break it down and swallow it. But what you've also got, there are 7 different types of turtles on the earth now, and you've got green turtles which have a jaw, but it's jagged. It's what's called serrated, a bit like a knife at home. It's got jagged edges, and that will help that green turtle bite off the seagrass which it eats. You've got turtles called one species called a loggerhead. It's actually got a massive head, a lot like mine, and that can help break down its prey, which might be crabs, might be conch, which is like a sea snail in a big shell. It can break these really thick shells. So they're just examples of how different sea turtles eat.
Good question, Stanley. Let's have another one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, and my name's Nathaniel, and I have a question. How do turtles communicate?
Oh, what a question.
That is a fantastic question. That's a really good question. So basically, I think if we look at a turtle in its first stages of its life, Nathaniel, like in a nest, they're slowly moving and breaking out of their shell, right? And so those movements, those vibrations are being felt by other turtles in those shells, and that's a form of communication. It might not be as humans communicate, let's say through speaking, but it's through vibrations, which is also a key thing, especially at that stage, because they're getting the communication that, oh, we're waking up now, we're all getting out of our shells, it's time to get out of this nest and enter this world. But there have been a few incidences where you've had hawksbill turtles on video kind of rub each other's shells or rub each other's beaks, and we're not really too sure what that means, to be honest. Baby turtle hatchlings can communicate via making noises in the nest, and we also think that not just hatchlings, but larger marine turtles might communicate through noises as well as they're getting older, if they're looking to mate. But we should remember that they're very different to humans. We're a very social species, and generally marine turtles are very solitary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
Hi, my name is Sasha, and my question for Andy is, what is the smallest type of turtle?
Yeah, so the smallest species of marine turtles are the olive ridleys and the Kemp ridleys. And so the shell gets to about a maximum of 75 centimeters in length, and the weight about 55 kilograms.
Wow.
Yeah.
So still quite a big animal in the water with you.
Yeah, Yeah, but when you compare it to a leatherback, you know, the biggest one that washed up in Wales was nearly a ton.
Wow.
There's a big disparity.
And I think that was nearly 3 meters. The carapace, the shell was nearly 3 meters long. Something or the whole animal. It was a huge animal, 3 meters and nearly a ton. That's almost the size of a small car. So from something like this to something that would fill up my entire room. Wow, amazing animals. Yeah. Good answer. Thanks, Andy.
Hello, my name is Liam. I'd like to ask a question. How does plastic get stuck in turtles?
Good one.
Great question. Great question. So obviously,
you want me to answer that, or are you happy to answer that, Andy?
Sorry?
You want to answer that? I mean, I'll hold the picture up for you.
Yeah, and maybe you could talk a bit of, we'll both do this. So Lynn, that's a fantastic question. And you know, plastic has really entered our lives in the last 30, 40, 50 years, right? It's in everything that we use, that we get from the supermarkets, especially single-use plastic. And, you know, unfortunately, this plastic does enter our ocean, and it's in huge amounts now. You know, it's a real problem for the health of our seas and for the animals that live in there.
I could do a little demonstration, actually, Andy, because I thought this question might come up. So
yeah, it's a great question.
And we know that you told us hawksbills will go and take soft corals and things like conch and things like that. But occasionally, would they take jellyfish and things like that as well?
Hawksbills, yeah, they can do.
Okay, I'm just going to show you something. That is just a piece of plastic, okay? Just a piece of plastic. Or, just going to show you that, another piece of plastic. If you're a turtle and you've been around for 160 million years, that looks a lot like dinner. That could be a samanophore, which is a kind of almost a bit like a kind of jellyfish, little tiny animals that join together in great big long chains. Or that bit of plastic, this is just from a bag, and I literally took this piece from a beach clean, and I now keep it and take with me to schools. If that's floating along, this turtle thinks, lovely, I'm going to get a lovely lunch, and I'll just hold, so imagine this plastic, and I'll hold up this picture again, look at what this turtle has found. So, plastic, it's a great question. Plastic in water really looks like food, and it even smells like food and gives off a kind of, it just really is good at mimicking, pretending to be food. Other things, bits of seaweed might cling to it, it might start to go a bit green. And the turtles and other animals, very, very clever animals like dolphins and whales, they think, oh, there's my lunch. And that is how it gets into the water. So you guys cutting down on your single-use plastic, massively important. Andy, could we do one more question? Have we got time for another question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lynn. Great question.
Hi, my name's Hannah, and I have a question for Andy.
Go for it.
What is the most common types of turtles?
That's a good question. So, do you remember those initial slides we showed? And there were, so yeah, basically, you've got the status. And obviously, we talked about species that are endangered. Those that are in more trouble than those species are critically endangered. But below endangered, you've got vulnerable, which the loggerhead is. So it's a really hard question to answer because it's so hard to know how many turtles there are out there of a particular type, a particular species. But we try and use our scientific studies, our monitoring, speaking with coastal communities to try and get an understanding. And from those assessments, we would say that those species that are vulnerable are probably in better health than those species that are critically endangered. But it gets even more, it gets a bit more complicated. So for example, the leatherback turtle, do you want to go to that slide, Ali? Okay, you can see that its health status is vulnerable, right? And in the Atlantic Ocean, there are quite a few big beaches where lots of leatherback turtles come to lay, and those populations are doing really well, right? So in the Atlantic, the leatherback turtle's doing well, right? But if you go to, let's say, another ocean called, let's say, the Pacific Ocean, the story is very different. And in fact, the leatherback turtles there are in a lot of trouble. And that's mostly due to their diet, jellyfish being in poor numbers, habitat destruction. So the beaches where they lay their eggs are being built on and destroyed. And also fishing. So you've got these fishing boats that are in the deep sea that are setting out miles and miles and miles of fishing line. And they're looking for species like tuna, you know, wahoo. But sometimes turtles will also take those hooks, especially with that bait on it. And that's also causing big problems for leatherback turtles in the Pacific.
That's a great question. So, Hannah, thank you so much. That's a great question. So I just wanted to say from me and also from massive thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much.
It's been so good.
Miss Corkery, we'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Great questions. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so Amdeep, a lot of the time when I'm in schools, I do take this image with me wherever I go. It's a fantastic image taken by an MCS supporter called Saeed Rashid. So Saeed, thank you. Once again, your turtle image is coming in really handy. And I know one of the questions I get asked a lot in schools, primary schools, is what are we doing to help turtles? Can you have a go answering that for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So our work in the Turks and Caicos Islands has really been about trying to find out more information about turtles. So basically, you know, what types of turtles are in Turks and Caicos waters? What are their sizes? How fast do they grow? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? How long are they staying here? All these different types of information can help you better understand turtles, and working with local communities help to protect them. And so a big part of our work in the Turks and Caicos Islands was satellite tagging. So basically sticking satellite tags on the back of sea turtles and seeing where they would move. Now, sea turtles, like the one you've got here in front, is an adult green turtle. They migrate hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers. And I basically waited for this green female turtle to come up on the beach. I stuck a tag on her and away she went. She spent a few days in the coastal waters of Turks and Caicos Islands, probably feeding on seagrass, you know, basically fuel, before she starts making this big journey. And then she went about 1,000 kilometers south to the US Virgin Islands, a big journey where she then stopped and started to obviously to feed again. But that satellite was giving us daily locations of where this turtle was, so we could go on the computer and find out, you know, how often, how much time is she spending in the waters of Turks and Caicos, how much time is she spending in the deep sea. And all this information can really help you to manage and protect these turtles when you work with other countries in that region.
There's a great video that we're just going to show, because I think the youngsters would really like to see this. You've met Amdeep here being all very serious and very scientific. I'm just going to show you a quick video now of a very elegant young man jumping off a boat and catching a green turtle, but not catching it for fun, catching it for very important scientific reasons. We'll just quickly play that video.
Coming up. Did you bring any more for sure? This one is not going to get it. Get him, Deep. Get him, Deep. Get him, Deep. Go ahead, Deep.
You got him? Awesome. Whoa, wow.
Hold him, Deep.
Oh, he's facing him.
Hold him, Deep. Hold him, Deep. Watch out now, Deep. Hold him, Deep. Deep, you're a fighter. You're a fighter, man. You're a fighter. That's
He
great.
nearly got away, you know.
I know.
But at the last minute he turned away and I just put my hand out and grabbed him by the top of his shell. He was dragging me.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, hell.
All right, that's the going on, boy. There.
Time to water the horses.
Yeah, man. Do what you got to do. Take him up and we'll release him right under the hood.
Okay, so I've showed the wonderful image from Saeed a couple of times, and it's really fascinating to hear about the tagging that you do and the importance of finding out just where they go and still finding out information. So definitely become a marine biologist. We need you out there being scientists of the future, please. Tell us a bit more about plastic pollution and what we can do about it. Maybe things that are coming up in July that would be something for people to try, Amdeep.
Sure. Well, I mean, this photo that Saeed took is, I mean, it's incredible because obviously it's a very alarming issue, the rise of plastics in our water, but we've never actually really documented so eloquently a turtle, a hawksbill, eating this plastic. And it's a major issue, you know, through our use of single plastics. If you look at all the different habitats that turtles use, from nesting beaches to inshore waters to the deep sea, you'll find litter and plastic everywhere. So it's a real threat. And one thing that MCS are doing is our plastic challenge in July. So basically every year in July, we ask the public to try and change their behavior when it comes to how much plastic they use. So that's a bit about our work in the Turks and Caicos Islands, in how we're you know, helping turtle conservation. But Ali, do you want to talk a bit about our work on plastic pollution?
Yeah, sure. I'll just flick on from this amazing image from Saeed Rashid. Thank you, Saeed. We use your image so much. Yeah, one thing we do at the Marine Conservation Society is it's all about stopping the plastic tide. We see these images, some more of our images we used in that Stop the Plastic Tide campaign. And how you can, and there's Amdeep again, how you can help turtles at home is get yourself educated. Go and do the links that we'll put in after this broadcast. After we've put this up on YouTube, we're hosting it on our website at the Marine Conservation Society. Get more into these animals, get more into conservation and ecology. It's really important. That is crucial. And there are practical things you can do as well. We run something called the Plastic Challenge, and we'd really like it if you could join us. Andy will be doing it, and Mary will be doing it, and all of the guys in the class there at St Bernadette's, I'm sure, will be taking on the Plastic Challenge. For one day or a week or a whole month, try and cut out as much single-use plastic, as much wasteful plastic, cut as much of that out of your daily life as possible. Maybe scientifically, you could keep a record of what you find. But I think you'll be surprised if I try and pick up some of my plastic, the amount of this stuff that we go through that really we don't need. We can cut plastics out. Sometimes it's very important. My glasses are plastic, but I've used them thousands of times. That's a good use of plastic, but there's a lot of bad uses. Have a go at cutting it out. Take the Plastic Challenge and take steps towards saving these beautiful animals and plenty of other animals like dolphins and whales, and indeed us. As plastic is going around the world, we are plasticizing our planet. So take the Plastic Challenge and give it a go. And thanks very much for doing so. So that's it, guys. Quite a long lesson, but there's a lot going on. There's so much to know about turtles. We need more people like Amdeep and our colleague Peter out there doing this work. If you love turtles, keep studying, keep working hard at school. We definitely need more marine biologists out there and more scientists helping us to save these beautiful, wonderful, remarkable animals. So a massive thank you to this man here. Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you
It's
very
been
much.
lovely to meet you properly, and I hope you guys at home enjoyed meeting Amdeep and finding out more about the work we do at the Marine Conservation Society. Please do drop in onto our other webinars and other lessons and other assets and resources that we have on our website. And there's plenty going on. Follow the links that will follow with this video. Work at home, find out more. If you have questions, drop them into us and we'll do our best to get back to you and try and answer them if we can. And once again, thank you for your time. It's really appreciated. All the best and see you another time. Bye.
See you guys.